Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Hyperion Adventures Podcast. I'm Tom. As always, I'm with my gorgeous, wonderful, beautiful, super smart, hardworking, early days of Walt Disney World loving wife and co-host Michelle.
Oh, thank you, baby. Hi, everybody.
So good to have you with us. We are recording this episode on Sunday, April 4th, 2021. I had to think about it for a second there because, yes, we are in April now. I hope you all are celebrating a wonderful Easter if you do celebrate Easter today. If not, hopefully you're just having a wonderful Sunday.
Yes.
Also, hope you made it through April Fool's Day okay. That day just drives me crazy anymore, especially on social media.
Yes. And yesterday was a unique date. 4, 3, 2, 1.
We all counted down to Easter, apparently. Yes.
A lot of weddings yesterday.
That's probably true. That's probably true. So thank you for joining us today, whatever day actually you are joining us. We're glad you found us here. However, the best place to find us is on our own website, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. And while you're there...
Did you know you can sign up for our newsletter?
Please sign up for the newsletter. Just another way to kind of be in connection with us, be in the more Hyperion Adventures podcast know. And if you did subscribe to the newsletter before this week, you got to see it. Yes, you were the first ones to witness the before and after of, yes, I finally did get my haircut this week.
Yes. And you did a great job with the selfies, the before and after. You look great either way.
Thank you.
My handsome baby.
Thank you very much. Yes, after 9 months of quarantine growth, finally got the hair out of my eyes temporarily anyway. And I promise this will be the last time for at least 3 to 4 months that I bring up my hair again on this podcast. But yes, it feels so good to finally get it, like I said, out of my face. Now, I admit, it didn't look bad with my hair long, but it was just so annoying in my face all the time. So I'm glad to get that done.
We all know what it's like when you're ready for a haircut. And if you have to wait that long when you're ready for a haircut, that's torturous.
Yes.
So
it was driving me crazy a lot. But again, that will be the last I bring it up for a while. You also saw that post if you were following us on social media, because I put it out there after the newsletter as well on social media. You can find us there on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. We do have a YouTube channel. Mostly we're just putting out sort of video versions of this podcast. It's really just another audio version of this podcast at this point right now. But if you want to find us there, just have another way to listen to us. Just do a search for Hyperion Adventures Podcast, hit subscribe, and you'll know whenever we have a new release on that site. And if you ever want to contact us for any reason, please hit us up at our Gmail account, HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, and as we've said in the past, we really appreciate people's feedback on Gmail account. We get some really nice positive things that people say. We're honored. But if you also have any questions or anything that we talked about that you didn't quite feel we covered sufficiently, please reach out to us.
Yes, we got some great response from last week's Ask Us Anything episode. You all seem to enjoy that one very much. It was very heavily downloaded this week. So thank you very much for all the questions. And thank you for everyone who listened to our responses. And if you ever have more questions, if you ever have any more questions for us, hit us up at any time. You don't have to wait till our next Ask Us Anything show. Hit us up whenever you want, either through our social media or through our Gmail account. Now, this week, lots of interesting things. I already talked about my haircut this week. Also, I was blessed enough to get the chance to go out to Padres baseball opening day out at Petco Park, which was exciting to be able to go out and see a live baseball game, a live sporting event once again.
Right. So it was really an exciting game. I was kind of following along with you while you're out there. But it's just so cool to see some more approaches to normalcy.
Yes. They only are doing about 20% capacity right now here in California. So I think I heard the number was about 8,700 some odd people at the ball game for that one. And they did spread us out. Mostly they had seats, blocks of seats together, and then they'd be separated by seats that were covered so no one can take a spot there. And, it was all right. Now, Padres fans, you need to do a little better with your mask mask wearing,
Yes.
and Padres and Petco personnel. You need to do a little bit better job of monitoring people with their face masks wearing. Also, they have everything right now. If you want to get food or beverages out of the ballpark, you have to do it through mobile ordering. Now, day one of mobile ordering at Petco Park for the Padres was a little hit, mostly miss out there. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because it was day one. But again, Padres brass, go up and give Disney a call because they handle mobile ordering very well. They know what's going on there. So hopefully the Petco Park and the Padres have it straightened out by this weekend. But either way, no matter what, yes, it was an exciting game. We have high hopes for our San Diego Padres this year. Padres won. We had a lot of fun. Thank you to my mother, who actually is a part-time season ticket holder that invited me to the game, and we had a great time out there together.
Yeah, and I'm glad you posted that on social media as well. And, although we're really a Disney podcast, it is relevant. And I love the little shout outs about the masking and the mobile food order, which Disney World really has solid.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing. Like good Padres brass, go talk to Disney because they empowered all their employees, all their cast members to be out there making sure that people are wearing their masks. More importantly, I did see that at some points during the game, but I would like to see it more from the personnel at Petco. Now, again, it was the first game. Right. They've played a couple more since then. Hopefully they've straightened this all out. We will find out as we go forward because we are planning to go to a game or two coming up here in the near future as well. And we just have to figure out the schedule for that. So, but yes, well, like I said, high hopes for the San Diego Padres this year. They're off to a good start, and hopefully that continues throughout the season. So you may be hearing more about the Padres this year on this show, but if they do start playing well, keep playing well.
Right.
So
very cool.
Another thing that we want to get to, and we hopefully will finally get to it this week, because for the last 2 weeks in a row, our episodes ran a little long. We had done a segment talking about Disney Plus, specifically talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And both for 2 weeks in a row, we've had to edit that segment out because our shows have run just a little longer than we would have liked. I'm hoping we can get this talk in today about it because I think we're really enjoying this show so far.
Yes, we are. And it is hilarious that we've had to talk about it multiple times and cut it. So hopefully we can remember some of the important points that we were making.
And maybe you should have just kept it and we could have just inserted it here because we've talked about it twice already. But yes, the one thing about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we're not going to give away any spoilers here for it, but we just want to talk about it a little bit, is that it feels really mainstream Marvel. It feels like you're back in a Captain America type movie. It's kind of that feel that they had with the first Captain America, the first Avenger, the Winter Soldier, etc. It kind of has that international intrigue feel about it, as well as it's kind of a buddy movie / show so far. And, I kind of like it. It's intriguing, and I can't wait to see it go. We're halfway through, I believe, the season now. I can't wait to see where the final 3 episodes take us.
Right. It is, like you said, it is the, pattern of a movie that you're watching it in segments, unlike WandaVision was clearly, each episode was very different, very unique, different feel altogether. That was more suspense and making you wonder, why this happened, or what was that symbol meaning, and why did those things happen in the episode. In Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's more like you're watching either a movie or a show that does, a continuation of a storyline. So very different, but still very entertaining. And can I talk about the Buffy reference, or you want that?
Yes, no, take it. We've mentioned this twice in the episodes that were cut, so we'll let you do it. I did it once, you did it once, and we'll let you take the third one.
Well,
hopefully the third time's the charm, right?
Right, exactly. So the Buffy reference is in relationship to like Angel and Spike. If you've watched those shows, you know that once they got their soul back, they remembered everything that they had done in the past.
All the horrible things they had done when they were evil.
Right. Thank you. And that's kind of what the Winter Soldier is going through. I know it's been brought up before in other movies, but it focuses it a little bit more. You can see how he is struggling with some of those demons as a result of that. Some flashbacks that really seem to impact him as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. And one thing we've seen through the couple shows that we've watched so far from new Marvel Phase 4, of course, WandaVision was obviously all about grief,
right.
So it was significantly about grief. But there's a lot of grieving going on in Falcon and the Winter Soldier as well. The fact that you're seeing a lot of the circumstance, a lot of the consequences from the blip, from the snap,
right.
Whereas there's the people who have been around for 5 years and seen things go on, and then others that are kind of dealing with the fact that they were gone for 5 years
right.
and they're kind of in this new world that's changed and different, and they're kind of dealing with the fact that some loved ones are gone, the world has changed around them, right. And that they have to adapt to that world. And so we're seeing a lot of that going on as well within Falcon and the Winter Soldier, just
right.
a different form of grief.
Yeah, but I think that is what makes it unique from the movies, because in the movies, the focus was on the people who didn't blip and how they were struggling with the losses and, obviously what they ended up doing to try to successfully get those who were blipped back. But from the perspective of, like you're saying, hey, I've been gone 5 years, things look really different. And it's like you said, we don't want to give any spoilers, but the whole relationship of, one, from the people, what their experience is coming into not knowing how the world is now, or that it was very different, but also from the people who were there and looking at the aspects of the relationship between those two groups. Fascinating.
Right. All they had to go through during the 5 years while these others were gone, not, thinking that they would probably ever come back.
Right.
That they'd ever see them again.
Right.
So,
and how do you deal with that
right.
now? How do you deal with some people coming back and, those situations that could arise with relationships and et cetera.
So, yeah. And then over the last few weeks, we've seen interesting characters appear within it. It's been really good. And I'm looking forward to, as I said already, to where it finishes up over these last few episodes of this season.
Right. So very exciting.
Yes. Another thing we watched on Disney Plus, and this one we talked about last week as well, didn't make or at least it landed on the cutting room floor last week, was we enjoyed watching over the last 2 weeks the new Mighty Ducks series, Mighty Ducks Game Changers.
Right.
Not because it's like this cinematic marvel, the greatest show we've ever seen in the world, but it's got a lot of heart to it. It's cute. It's funny. Is it predictable? Pretty much predictable. But there's just something charming about it. Right.
I think that's a great description. It is charming. Like you said, it is predictable in a lot of perspectives of it. It's just fun TV watching. It's easygoing and, lovable characters, new
good
people.
For all ages.
Yeah. And so, it doesn't try to be too serious, but once in a while it'll present some serious topics. For example, the situation, of kids in school these days and bullying and acceptance and things like that. And they do a great job, but it's not the overall theming of it. It's just, it does recognize that exists for sure.
Again, like I said, it's not the best written thing. The dialogue isn't the best. It's not, this great. It's not going to win a lot of awards.
No, but it's fun.
Pretty predictable. But so was the original Mighty Ducks, and we love the original Mighty Ducks movie, and this fits right in with that. So we will be watching it and enjoying it, and we've enjoyed the first couple episodes so far. So, finally, I want to say one more thing, and that is about something that's not on Disney Plus, but it is on Hulu, which Disney owns the majority of, and that is we've been watching from Nat Geo. The Genius series on Aretha Franklin.
Right.
We're 3 or 4 episodes in now, and really enjoying that because she has a very interesting life.
Yeah, she really does, and just amazing. A lot, like especially in that era of what things were going on politically and through social issues, but also the fact that typically people's lives in that regards were not as well known, and so seeing that revealed now and how they dealt with struggles, how somebody as talented as Aretha Franklin dealt with some of the things going on with her life and was still able to be so successful. But I mean, of course, she's super talented. So.
Right. Yeah. It's really an interesting storyline. I again, based on a true story. I don't know how much is fact, how much is, a dramatic interpretation of what went on, but it is really interesting. The actresses that they play, both having played the older Aretha Franklin and the younger Aretha Franklin, and I should have looked up their names before I went on here, but unfortunately I didn't. But they are doing a fantastic job, including singing majestically. Is it Aretha level? No, but they're pretty good. And I'm really enjoying the show so far.
Agreed. I think it's just like I said, it's just so fascinating, and I agree with you. It may be based on a true story with some other elements that may not be quite as accurate, but it's still great storytelling.
So if you haven't looked that up yet, go check it out. It is on Hulu. It's from Nat Geo. You might be able to find it on National Geographic on regular TV as well. I'm not positive of that, but it definitely is on Hulu. Look it up because it is a very interesting biopic for sure.
Yes. So fingers crossed that those things make it to
the
episode.
We'll see if it does make it on these episodes. So, but as for this week, we have lots of stuff for you this week, including we received a few more details about a highly anticipated Disney Plus Star Wars series. We'll talk a little bit about that. We received interesting news that may just have us revisiting a popular Disneyland restaurant once we have the chance to return to the happiest place on earth. We'll talk about that. And we now know the dates for a very popular Walt Disney World Festival. But let's get to this week's main topic. So, this week we decided, Michelle came up with the idea, look, it's a big birthday celebration for one of our favorite places in the world. Of course, we're talking about Walt Disney World. And that's coming up here in about 6 months. On October 1st is when the official birthday celebration kicks off. And Michelle's like, what we should do is some sort of countdown with segments each month leading up to it. And I thought that was a great idea. And of course, I especially thought that's a great idea because that means Michelle is going to do some of her wonderful research, which we all love because Michelle does the very best research, but it also means I get to relax and learn something, but still get to relax more than anything else. But let's get to it. Michelle's part one of our countdown to Walt Disney World's 50th birthday. What are we talking about to kick it all off?
All right. So first of all, it won't be like you would normally think a progression like this. It was the first step and then what was the next thing. It's topic based. This week's topic is called Disney's Map to the Magic Kingdom. So it's really focusing on, how did this concept of Walt Disney World and the Magic Kingdom really develop and play out? And there were some really interesting concepts that, were considered at the table, but the whys and some of the challenges that they overcome, we hope we're covering today.
Cool. I can't wait to hear all about everything that have gone on, and I'm sure I will learn. Michelle's research is always so good. I always think I know a lot of this stuff, and then I learn like a dozen new things that I had no idea about going into. So hopefully this will be the same for you. Maybe you may know very little about the building of Walt Disney World. Maybe you're a Disneyland person or whatever.
Right.
Michelle's research is always fantastic, and so I can't wait to find out what we learn today.
All right. Well, thank you for that build-up. Hopefully I don't disappoint. Sometimes, when you know some parts of the history of a subject like Disney World, you feel like it's common knowledge. So I feel like a lot of this is already known, but let's hope there's some new things.
I think there's levels of what people know. I think a lot of people, a lot of our listeners, a lot of people who are Walt Disney World fans will know a lot of this stuff, but there's always those few things that you will slip through the cracks of your knowledge base and that you find interesting or whatever. But I think also there's a lot of people out there that, they just go to the parks and have a good time and they maybe not know all the history of it. And so, stuff that you bring up like that is always beneficial for people.
All right. Well, hopefully. Thank you. Okay. So at the time that it was being developed, the the new location was known as the Florida Project. And so let's explore, what the motivation was, the vision, and the plans for this new world. But to understand it, first, you do have to consider the forerunner, which was Disneyland. And that was obviously Walt's initial plan. But it was from there and how that was developing that things inspired and motivated him to plan further. So Walt, first of all, realized that the transformation of Anaheim from when the park was first built there really ended up resulting in like these tacky neon signs and motels, kind of sleazy motels at times, and gift shops that really, from Walt's perspective, distracted the experience that he wanted his guests to have, and actually distracted from his brand. And so
he had no control over any of those. He didn't even have, like, now kind of Disney has some sort of okay to some of the things that go on right around the park. They kind of got that back a few years back from the Anaheim City Council and such. Just kind of, not that they can dictate specifically, like you can't put a hotel there or you can't put a hotel there, but it's like, we want to be sure the standards are up to being right around the Disneyland park. But that wasn't the case to begin with. He had his land and that was it. And so whatever popped up around, whatever people could afford. And I stayed at some of those motels that were around Disneyland at the time. And let me tell you, you were wondering if that was a two-way mirror at some of these places, the vibrating bed, the weird two-way mirror that could be a two-way mirror. Is that a camera behind that light up there?
Right.
It was a little creepy sometimes when you stayed there, but they've gotten a better grip of that now.
Right. Walt just felt like it was just also lack of attention to city planning, and so he really started researching that topic. He looked at, books. He visited new communities and, really tried to gain some understanding. Initially, I think with the concept that he could bring that back to really help improve Disneyland, but eventually realized what he wanted, his true vision, was going to mean he had to go somewhere else for that. And the other thing that he saw at Disneyland, was really paying attention to what the guests were experiencing. And he tried to continually improve, what he called plussing things based on what he saw or talked to guests and what they liked. And he tried to remove things that they didn't like. So he was also, being very reflective of what was going on inside the park as well. So, but it was an unexpected result that Walt actually kind of came up with a new side career of being an urban designer. And in fact, there was a developer, James Roos, I think is how you pronounce his name. He was so impressed by Disneyland that in 1963, he was a keynote speaker for the Urban Design Conference at Harvard University. And this is what he said, and I'm quoting, "The greatest piece of urban design in the United States today is Disneyland. If you think about Disneyland and think of its performance in relationship to its purpose, its meaning to the people, its meaning to the process of development, you'll find it the outstanding piece of urban design in the United States. It took an area of activity, the amusement park, and lifted it to a standard so high in its performance, in its respect for people, and in its functioning for people, that it really has become a brand new thing. I find more to learn in the standards that have been set and in the goals that have been achieved in the development of Disneyland than any other single piece of physical development in the country."
Wow. Really cool.
Yeah, right?
That's quite a statement about Disneyland. Yeah.
So, it was really being noticed also by urban developers of what Disney and Disneyland was offering. So, as we mentioned, as you mentioned, Walt really couldn't control what was going on around him. And he decided he needed to, as we said, move forward. And look at the challenge of creating his own community in his own design. So let's take a look at that initial plan. All right? Walk with me here.
Okay.
So after he did a really detailed analysis of the United States, different areas, he chose personally Florida. He felt the state already had healthy tourist population. The weather allowed for year-round enjoyment and operation. And even better, there was large areas of affordable undeveloped land.
Yes.
Now, we're going to talk about that in another episode.
Okay.
But it was part of, obviously, what was intriguing and attractive to Walt to consider Florida.
Okay.
So to begin with, let's listen to Walt, in his own words, talk about this Florida project.
Today, I want to share with you some of our ideas for Disney World. Now, the prologue to this film told you some of the philosophy that made Disneyland in California what it is today. Of course, there will be another amusement theme park in Florida, similar to the one in California. We're now developing a master plan that encompasses the theme park and all the facilities around it that will serve the tourists. Hotels, motels, and a variety of recreation activities. In fact, just this little area alone is 5 times the size of Disneyland in California.
All right, so bottom line is the vision for Florida would be more than a Disneyland East, right? It was going to be more than just a theme park. But there was a theme park. That was just part of it. The master plan for this land was so much more, so much greater. You know, when you talked about Epcot, Walt's vision was different than what the theme park we know as Epcot turned out to be. For example, you know, he wanted it to include plans for an airport, an industrial park area, apartments, themed shopping areas, theaters, high-speed rapid transit systems consisting of monorails and people movers.
Yes.
Because they already had the people movers at Disneyland Resort already. So he factored that into his vision. It was his last vision before he passed away. But it really became such a central part of what he was planning and thinking of. In fact, Marty Sklar once described Walt's obsession with this part of the project as the following. With Walt Disney World, you know, Walt didn't spend any time working on the park. In fact, his whole focus was on Epcot. And so before, you know, his final days, there were a lot of meetings frequently held with some of the planning people that we've heard about in the past, like Marty Sklar, Herb Ryman, Marvin Davis. And it just seemed, from things that I was reading, it was a continual evolution of ideas, of planning, etc. And it's even said, and I tend to believe this one because I've read it in many areas, and one of the most convincing was at the Walt Disney Family Museum website, was that even as he was in the hospital during his last days, that he was thinking about and planning Epcot. And it is said that his brother, Roy, who would visit him, obviously said, Walt lay on the hospital bed staring at the ceiling. It was squares of perforated acoustic tile, and Walt pictured them as a grid map for Disney World. Every 4 squares represented a square mile, and he said, now there is where the highway will run. There's the route for the monorail.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I know, right? But let's listen to Walt, and again, in his words, describe what his vision really was for Epcot. Because it was definitely innovative and pretty lofty.
But the most exciting, the most important part of our Florida project, in fact, the heart of everything we'll be doing in Disney World, will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow. We call it Epcot, spelled E-P-C-O-T, experimental prototype community of tomorrow. Here it is in larger scale. Epcot will will take its cue from the new ideas and new technologies that are now emerging from the creative centers of American industry. It will be a community of tomorrow that will never be completed, but will always be introducing and testing and demonstrating new materials and new systems. And Epcot will always be a showcase to the world for the ingenuity and imagination of American free enterprise. I don't believe there's a challenge anywhere in the world that's more important to people everywhere than finding solutions to the problems of our cities. But where do we begin? How do we start answering this great challenge? Well, we're convinced we must start with the public need. And the need is not just for curing the old ills of old cities. We think the need is for starting from scratch on virgin land and building a special kind of new community. So that's what Epcot is, an experimental prototype community that will always be in a state of becoming. It will never cease to be a living blueprint of the future, where people actually live a life they can't find anywhere else in the world. Everything in Epcot will be dedicated to the happiness of the people who will live, work, and play here, and those who come here from all around the world to visit our living showcase.
So as you can see, he was really looking at a city where people would actually live there, work there, or visit. Mm-hmm. And although that's not the Epcot that developed, there were some really cool features from his initial vision that did end up making it into Walt Disney World. And, those are things like the concept of transportation hubs, and how important those are. Obviously, monorails and people movers, but also the other concepts that he had in his plans were the underground support operation, things that he didn't want to interfere with the views and the experiences of people, not just in when they come play, but in their day-to-day life. He also had the idea of resorts, which we know has been such a big feature at Walt Disney World. For sure, yeah. And having activity, play things to do outside of an amusement park.
Recreation, yeah.
Right.
Because everybody needs recreation from time to time. Yeah.
Exactly.
Walt understood that for sure.
Yes.
He's built parks around, being able to get away and have a good time as a family.
Right. So it's a real vacation location, and obviously things like the nightlife and theater and things that we see at Disney Springs. Those were all concepts with the original vision that Walt had of Epcot. It just didn't roll out as a town where people would live. Right. And obviously there were challenges, right? Challenges anytime you do something this major, this innovative, you're going to have a lot of things to deal with.
Starting by the mastermind behind it all passing away at an early age, unfortunately, and losing that that brilliant mind behind it, and everybody having to recover from that. I mean, let's talk about a giant challenge. That was a huge one.
Yeah. And you're reading my notes. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding you. His untimely death was definitely a big blow, not just to the concept of the Florida Project, but the company as a whole. But yes, the Florida Project was one that was really questioned at first as to whether they really should move forward with it at all, But Roy really did, because of his love for his brother, felt the importance of this project to Walt, that he decided he would dedicate his life, to creating some things with the Florida Project that were important to Walt.
Mm-hmm. He basically came out of retirement to kind of help lead the way to finish off the project, or at least get to the point where it kicked off in 1971.
Exactly. And that really wasn't Roy's role. Roy was the financial guy. He was the one to, make sure to keep things in check from time to time with Walt, but he was not necessarily the planner. That creative genius came strictly from Walt and not Roy. But, he did learn from Walt, and he did try to make sure he kept the essence of Walt in this. And in fact, I think we've talked about in other episodes where Walt would want to really do something spectacular, and he knew Roy wouldn't want him to do it. One of them was like putting gold leaf on the castle, and Roy, devoted to Walt, decided he wasn't going to skimp with Disney World. And in fact, there was a press release in 1969 that said the most modern and advanced telephone system in America was installed at Walt Disney World. And in addition to that, the trash collection system of using the underground trash system, etc., was written about, saying giant vacuums help keep the magic in the Magic Kingdom. The quiet, discreet trash removal seen in small operations in Sweden became not only the first AVAC system in the U.S., but also by far the largest system in the entire world.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. So the only real difference Roy made was the name change. Walt had planned it to be Disney World, and Roy really insisted that the name be called Walt Disney World, and made sure that that was, the official name of the Florida project. Yeah.
And they made sure that there was some of Walt's favorite attractions that also boast his name as well, because as a tribute to him, like the railroad is always the Walt Disney World Railroad, or, because Walt Disney Railroad, because he loved his trains so very much, so that's there's only a few attractions that, if you ever notice, most attractions are, the Country Bear Jamboree or Splash Mountain or whatever, but there are a few attractions out there that you may note are Walt Disney or Walt Disney's or Walt Disney Presents or something along those lines, because those were his those were the ones that he loved so much, and the company wanted to be sure that they had his name on top of those.
Right. Good point. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the railroad, because when they were planning the park and putting in the railroad, obviously, one of the trains they wanted to also call the Roy Disney. And he declined that. He said, no, they eventually did do one for him after he passed away. But while he was alive, he said, no, he really didn't need that kind of honor. It really was all about Walt. So
nice.
Right. According to the Tampa Bay Times, there were other challenges that the company dealt with, including labor strikes, skeptical government officials. And
government officials are skeptical?
I know. A new company coming
shady?
In.
What?
And actually, that the Orlando airport really wasn't a major airport that could handle tourism from all over the world. So, that was some things that the company did have to deal with, on top of, some of the other struggles that they were coming up with. But the other less discussed challenges that were faced by the company that they really did have to face was, how would one company maintain and govern a city? Walt's vision really, if you really listen to, and, we played a part of it, but if you really listen to his description of Epcot, he really wanted full control. And when you're having a city like that, you have to look at the issue of what about the people who live there, and the fact that he did want people to live there. Not to mention the fact that he wanted the people who live there to work there. And so what would you do if somebody didn't want to live there, or let's say they got a job somewhere else? Are they going to be allowed to stay living there? And another one of those touchy subjects is the issue of religion, and where would you have space, or would you provide adequate space for multiple denominations of worship? So the company really did have to face the fact that, and these were some of the things that Walt was also dealing with before before he even passed away. But it was something the company really had to face. Like, what is the reality of sustaining this kind of vision? That, maybe at first it could be a utopia of sorts, but over time there would be some some challenges and some struggles. And
more challenges. They're already facing enough challenges,
right.
but definitely going to be more to come for sure.
Exactly. So, although the portion of Walt's plan for a prototype city didn't really roll out, what was successful was the largest creation enterprise ever undertaken by a single company at that time, and that Walt Disney World has become the premier vacation destination in the world. Those are not insignificant things. And it's the place Walt envisioned that, as he said, is dedicated to happiness of people who come here. And I think they are successful in really capturing the essence of his vision of what he wanted to see happen in Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, when you look back at and you heard a bit of it there, when you look back at some of the video of Walt describing like Epcot or whatever, of course he didn't develop Epcot as what he originally thought. Or if you, once the People Mover starts again, if you go through and you see that model of what Epcot was supposed to be, they have that fully made out, or at least a portion of it, model of what Epcot was supposed to be like. Obviously, it's not that, but they were able to create this community, which is a vacation destination, and try and do the best they could, around all the challenges that they were bound to face.
Yeah. I mean, there are, we mentioned some of the big aspects that came into place that were from Walt's original concept, but the concept of community does exist in Epcot. And when you look at the communities of other nations being there, and pre-COVID, and we're looking forward to post-COVID, more and more people from those nations bringing their community and representation of that to all of us to share an experience, I think are all good elements of what were from Walt's vision, and that they were able to really to grow on that.
Agreed.
And the other part of it too was that his vision said it's never going to change. That it's never going to stop changing, that it will always evolve. And that is in the core of Epcot. And we've seen it.
It's in the core of Disney.
In the core of Disney, true.
Disney from Disneyland on.
That's true. That was
always evolved. Yeah.
Right. So, like I said, it wasn't the defined Epcot that Walt first had in his mind. But, even if he had survived, we don't know that it would have still been that. But he did produce a strong foundation of ideas and concepts that the company was able to really capture, make a part of their heart, and build on.
And I believe it. And I know there would be some who would dispute it to this day and saying, what would Walt think about what's happening in the parks nowadays? But I think that even to this day that they still look back and think of what Walt might have wanted. And, sometimes you have to adjust it to, 50 years later,
true,
and
yes.
figure it all out that, what would Walt want might have changed in 50 years. But at the same point, I think that's still the basis of how they build Disney and what goes on customer service wise, what goes on when they start thinking about new attractions, new lands, new parks, whatever the case may be, going back to this precedent that Walt set way back at first with the Walt Disney Company, but then with Disneyland. And of course, leading into trying to build this brand new Florida project, the Walt Disney World Resort.
Right. And those concepts are continuing to grow, whether you talk about parks in other countries, the Disney Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, all those things really take Walt's original vision, I think, of Disneyland, but also as it expanded for the Florida project. And his heart is in all those things. Yeah.
I still believe so. I know, like I said, I think there's some that will dispute that out there, but I still believe it's true. And I still believe, even in new stuff that they've just put up or building, that you still see Walt in them if you look around.
Right.
And Walt would be amazed. Like, I think that Walt would be, some people would say, Walt would want nothing to do with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I think Walt would be amazed by Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and the immersiveness of it. It's something he wouldn't really understand because Star Wars was still long past, when he passed away, but if he understood that and went in there, he would think it's phenomenal.
Right. Definitely. I mean, he was hugely a proponent of technology and things that could continue to grow to meet people's needs. And that probably would have been one of the downfalls because, I mean, at the time he was coming up with these concepts, technology took longer to develop. And now we see in this day and age, a computer that's built today is old in 6 months, same with cars and things like that. So technology, if you look at it from a concept of a city or something like that, it's hard to keep up with it. And that's why we see Tomorrowland's change.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest problems with Tomorrowland. The problem why they can't keep Tomorrowland. We've mentioned it in the past that both Tomorrowland in the Magic Kingdom and Tomorrowland at Disneyland could use some love. And the problem is that they can't figure out how to approach it because technology is evolving. By the time when you plan something out, like totally changing a land, you're thinking of what the technology might be for tomorrow.
Right.
But by the time it's built 5 years later or however long it takes, that technology is already out of date. So it's really tough to figure that, to kind of find that sweet spot in that area.
It was interesting that you say that too, because, I think Disneyland Paris tried to adjust their concept of Tomorrowland to be, what did Tomorrowland look like in years past? So kind of like the concept of Jules Verne and how he saw the future to look, and try to make Tomorrowland be kind of representing those concepts. I thought was pretty ingenious.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think eventually they are going to, once we get things settled down and they can start approaching some of these areas and get people back to work and really put money into more construction or whatever, they are eventually going to approach redoing both Tomorrowlands. It'll be interesting to see what they decide, what they land on, what the Imagineers land on with those two areas.
Right.
Sure.
And at least we know they have the concepts of Walt, and again with technology, how he felt that was such an important component of daily life. And, we see that with the new attractions that have come out, that technology and advanced technology is really an important part of it.
Yeah, so, for sure. So
anyway, so that is the map to the Magic Kingdom overview. We have some other interesting topics coming up. I don't know if you want to hear about any of them.
Yeah, that was a great job, by the way, sweetheart. Michelle's research, always the best research, interesting stuff that I didn't know, fascinating quotes, lots of cool stuff in there. So thank you very much for joining that. So
Thank you.
First of all, tell everybody what we have coming up for them in May when we get to the second part of this series.
So in May's episode, we're going to be doing Disney's Land, which is really going to be focusing on the land at Walt Disney World, how it was acquired, some of the other components of it, and the future, like what is current and what is coming up in relationship to land issues, and takes into account the whole thing about our Mother Earth.
Yeah, that's a really intriguing story because, how they ended up buying this land. There was a little bit of subterfuge going on there to try and get this all figured out. So if you don't know that story, or even if you do know it, I'm sure Michelle will have some interesting stuff involved in that. So yeah, we'll be definitely looking forward to that next month. And like I said, we're going to continue this throughout the upcoming months leading up to October 1st at Walt Disney World's official 50th birthday. And Michelle's going to have a new topic for you every single month, and that will be a lot of fun. So thank you, Michelle. Great job.
Thank you. And if anybody out there has any particular questions about today's episode, or something you want to make sure I'm covering, I think we're doing quite a few aspects of Walt Disney World. It's just how we're framing each topic. But let us know so we can make sure we're covering the things that you want to hear about.
Good job. So great job by Michelle. Again, our first part of our countdown to Walt Disney World's 50th birthday. Really interesting stuff there, and looking forward to hearing more. And plus, I get these days off when I don't have to do quite as much whenever she does these deep dives into this research. But it always is interesting, and I always learn some cool stuff. So
thank you.
So let's get to our Disney stories of the week. I do have a few for you this week, and I'm going to start with, we received a few more details about a highly anticipated Disney Plus Star Wars series. I'm super excited for this one. I know Michelle is as well. So this came from StarWars.com. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the new Disney Plus special event series starring Ewan McGregor as the iconic Jedi Master, will begin shooting in April. Yay! Yeah, I've seen some pictures of the set, and it looks like it's a really elaborate set that they're building out in, I believe they're building it out in the UK, and it's really cool looking. Can't wait to see what comes from it. They go on to say the story begins 10 years after the dramatic events of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, where Kenobi faced his greatest defeat, the downfall and corruption of his best friend and Jedi apprentice, Anakin Skywalker, turned evil Sith Lord Darth Vader, of course. Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to be directed by Deborah Chow, who you may remember was the director of 2 critically acclaimed episodes of The Mandalorian during season 1. She did a great job with that. So exciting to know that she's going to be manning up the series. That'll be fantastic. Or womaning up the series, I guess. The series also marks the return of Hayden Christensen in his role as Darth Vader. I think that's great that he's coming back. I remember back at Disney Investor Day when they officially, and after it had been rumored for a while, and they officially announced that he was coming back. I was extremely excited because I want to see, we've already seen Darth Vader be redeemed within the Star Wars series. I want to see Hayden Christensen get a chance to be redeemed within Star Wars, because I think that he has been dealt some terrible blows from what happened to him that may not all completely been his fault from some of the stuff he had to do in the prequels.
Yeah, it's good that they are recognizing that and bringing him back, and I think it'll make for a very interesting series. And like you said, it's in good hands. We know this company is really looking to reveal more of the behind the scenes details of what happened with these characters. And it's just thrilling to know that that's coming up.
Yeah, I also think the one thing with the prequel is that you can discuss, the dialogue and some of the acting or whatever from Hayden Christensen and some of the other actors from the prequels. But the one thing I don't think you can discount is the chemistry that was between Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker in that series was extremely strong. I think you kind of felt that, and that so much so that when you watch Revenge of the Sith, it really feels weighty at the end when they're battling each other. I mean, I have a tough time watching it today, and I think that a good portion of that is because of that chemistry that they have between the two of them. To see the animosity at the end was tough to get through.
Oh, definitely. And one of the other things that you've mentioned in the past is how we really see the Obi-Wan of the original series being developed, like the mannerisms, the type of laughter, or just little things about that original character are coming through.
Capturing a little bit of Alec Guinness, McGregor did. I thought he did a fantastic job, and I can't wait to see him return. Also joining the cast, they announced are Moses Ingram, Joel Edgerton, Bonnie Piesse, Kumail Nanjiani, Indira Varma, Rupert Friend, O'Shea Jackson Jr., Sung Kang, Simone Kessel, and Benny Safdie. Interesting that Joel Edgerton and Bonnie Piesse played the younger versions of Owen and Beru Lars in the prequel films. So while they weren't officially announced to be playing those roles in this series, you got to believe that they're recurring those roles for this. So we're going to see a little bit of Owen and Beru Lars out there. Beru, who you were just talking about last week on our Ask Us Anything, like you'd like to see more from Aunt Beru.
Yes. Thank you, Disney, for listening.
So, and that also leads to, we may see a little bit of young Luke out there too, as a possibility, because obviously Luke is, spoiler alert, staying with the Lars during this time period. So kind of cool.
Right. And, some of the other things we may see in that regards too is you can maybe understand a little bit more why Uncle Owen really is trying to I don't know if I want to say control, but monitor what Luke is doing.
Really protect him.
Right. So, getting to see how did he find out more about what Anakin Skywalker became.
Yeah. So I'm excited for the series. Can't wait for it to come out. I'm sure it's still, obviously they're not filming until this month, but hopefully we'll see it sometime early next year, and very excited for when it finally does hit Disney Plus. Moving on, we received interesting news that may just have us revisiting a popular Disneyland restaurant once we get the chance to return to the happiest place on earth. This from the Disney Parks blog. It was just a small part of their Disney Parks Best Bites April 2021 story, but I think it was the most intriguing part of that story.
Kind of like hidden in there in the middle of things.
Right.
Yes.
Here's what it said in the story. Blue Bayou Restaurant in Disneyland Park will soon offer new beverage options that elevate the culinary experience. This guest favorite spot will open after the theme parks reopen, and we'll share that date as soon as we can. The enhanced offerings fit right in with the story and spirit of the Blue Bayou and reflect what many guests have requested. The new additions will complement the menu and theme of the restaurant with beverages such as wine, beer, and a specialty hurricane cocktail, of course, a New Orleans staple. Or you may want to try the new collection sparkling wine package. Yes. Soon you'll be able to pair them with the restaurant's delicious menu items like the popular surf and turf. Also keep an eye out for new seasonal takes on our mint julep non-alcoholic beverage. Stay tuned for more on the Blue Bayou. Again, that was straight from Disney Parks blog. Very excited about this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've talked in the past that we do enjoy, especially wine with dinner and those.
Oh, do we? Really? Does anybody out there know that?
Right, a secret. But the Blue Bayou has really some, fine dining type dishes or signature dishes. But again, thinking of this episode with Walt paying attention to what the guests want, and that is something that at Disneyland we've talked about in the past, that outside of California Adventure Park and Olga's Cantina, there aren't any offerings for any kind of alcohol beverage. And I get why people can be in an uproar of things like that. But it's still, again, it's what are people asking for? And that's what Walt wanted to make sure people were listened to, and that he could provide that offering.
Right. And this isn't, necessarily opening the door for alcohol to be served at every quick service restaurant throughout Disneyland Park. This is just one single restaurant. Now, I've always felt this, and I think you agree with me on this, Michelle, that when you went to the Blue Bayou restaurant, it always felt like you should be able to get a nice glass of wine or a bottle of wine while you're there, because the ambiance of it, it's kind of darker, kind of candle lit. You're out there on the bayou right next to the Pirates of the Caribbean. You see the boats go by, and it's kind of got that feel. Plus the menu items are these hearty dishes, kind of, the rustic, but still fine dining, like, rack of lamb and steaks and braised short ribs and stuff that perfectly are complemented by a nice glass of Cabernet Sauvignon or a Merlot or whatever you enjoy. And it just kind of felt like, you were missing that aspect when you're in there. And I really feel that it kind of needed that, just to kind of, complement this food just a little bit better when you're in there. So.
To have that as an option if people are interested in it. And, when Walt Disney World first opened, the Magic Kingdom was also a dry area, and alcohol has been introduced, and I think people have been okay with it. So it's exciting to see here. Like you said, I think it's going to enhance that dining experience for a lot of people, and we're just thrilled that that's being considered or being implemented.
Yeah, exactly. So we will probably, if we can, once we get the chance to return to Disneyland, which we're hoping we're going to get some news from soon, possibly this week, once we get the chance to go back, I would bet if we're going to be at Disneyland Park, we'll be looking to book a reservation there as soon as it opens up, because they didn't say it's going to be open the first day that Disneyland Park reopens. But whenever it does get back to opening up Blue Bayou Restaurant, I'm sure we will be looking to sample it and see what it's like with the new additions to the menu, but of course to the wine list, beer list, et cetera.
Agreed. And like you said, it's probably not going to be part of the initial reopening phase because of the phases that the state of California is going through in terms of where will they be once they open, what level will they be able to, because it is totally indoor dining.
As much as it feels a little outdoor, it is totally indoor dining. Yes, for sure. So we will check that out, and we'll let you know when we find out more about that as well. Moving on, we now know the dates for an upcoming popular Walt Disney World Festival, again from the Disney Parks blog. Start whetting your appetites because the Epcot International Food and Wine Festival begins July 15th at the Walt Disney World Resort. It's another early start time, but I think it's exciting.
Right. And like you had pointed out, the name of it does not include a taste or a touch. It is the Epcot International Food and Wine Festival.
Right.
So that's exciting.
Yes. Ever since the Food and Wine Fest, when Walt Disney World reopened last year in July, all the festivals up to this point have had taste of in front of their name. Epcot, and that's starting with the Food and Wine Festival, moving through the Festival of the Holidays, the Festival of the Arts, and the Flower and Garden Festival. But this is the first one that isn't. Now, it still looks like it's going to be a little bit pared back to begin with, but I think they wanted to leave it open as vaccines start running out there more, as things begin to be able to open up more, hopefully, that they can make this a more of a full-fledged food and wine festival. So we'll see what's to come for sure.
Yeah, it's super, super exciting. And again, another one of those great feelings of getting back to more normal times.
Agreed. So the story went on to say this year's event will kick off with global marketplaces, including the return of many favorites: Canada, Greece, Germany, hops and barley, Appleseed Orchard, and others. Even more marketplaces will join the International Smorgasbord as the festival continues on until the fall before wrapping up on November 20th. So we have from July 15th all the way to November 20th to get out there and experience that before they do the Festival of the Holidays. I would imagine will be shortly after that.
Right. And it'll be running during the celebration of the 50th anniversary.
That's very true. Good point. They go on to say there will be lots of ways for families to enjoy this year's events beyond just eating lots of great food, of course. But I mean, really, do you need anything more? But that's fine.
Yeah.
You'll be able to sample all sorts of delicious cheeses served in fun ways as part of Emil's fromage montage.
Nice.
If you collect a stamp from 5 different global marketplaces, you'll earn a prize. We love cheese.
Yes.
We may be earning those stamps for sure when we get out there to check this out. Remy's Ratatouille Hide and Squeak will send you on a savory scavenger hunt in search of Remy's statuettes hidden all over the park. That sounds like a lot of fun, especially leading up to the opening of the Remy's Adventure out there at Epcot. You can take a tasty souvenir home from new merchandise collections, including a festival collection featuring a Spirit jersey, baseball cap, and so much more. And you can also listen to musical favorites performed by the Voices of Liberty, Mariachi Cobre, and the Jammin' Chefs, all favorites of ours for sure.
Yeah,
so
love it.
I'm looking forward to it. Don't know exactly when we're going to get out there for the Food and Wine Festival this year, but we will definitely be out there at some point for the Food and Wine Festival. Possibly many times. We're looking forward to checking this all out, and we'll, of course, tell you all about it when we get out there.
Exactly.
So that's it for the Disney stories of the week. However, we never leave you without giving you some sort of tip that might help you on your next vacation. And as always, we start with Michelle. One, because she's beautiful, wonderful, all things great,
so
hardworking. She does the best research, but she also has the very best tips. So let's get to it. Here is Michelle's tip of the week.
Oh, you're just too kind, sweetie. Well, my tip relates to strollers and wheelchairs. You know, as the attendance levels are increasing now in the parks, we know that there are going to obviously be more strollers and wheelchairs, and it's always easier if you can identify yours, especially if the cast members need to relocate some of the strollers to make for better use of space. So you can, before your trip even begins, start to work on things that can help make your stroller stick out in a fun way. So whether you create signs or let your kids help create signs or some waterproof decorations, because we know it rains in Florida, but it can really help get people in your party excited for the trip. The other thing that might be very helpful is to use clips like those large, what are they called? Like carabiner clips.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and
carabiners.
Carabiner. Yeah. Okay, thanks. I know what they are. I just didn't know what they were called for sure. But you can, you know, put those.
You say carabiner, I say carabiner.
That's a good one, maybe.
Sure it was.
But having those available on the, you know, the the handrails or whatever of the stroller. You can hang things like popcorn buckets, or water bottles, and just, again, making it easier, not just to identify, but easier for your day in the park. And also remember to bring either a poncho or some kind of plastic covering so that while you are experiencing an attraction or something, you can keep your stroller or wheelchair dry.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you think about making sure and cover yourself up when that big Florida rainstorm comes through as we head more and more towards the rainy season out there. But sometimes you don't think about covering up your stroller or whatever, and then you end up with a super soggy stroller, which none of your kids want to sit in. It definitely is, and all your stuff gets soaked as well. And that definitely something that to take into account. So Michelle's tip. Always the best tip for sure.
Sweet,
that's a great one.
Thank you.
My tip this week is just a really quick one. We're all excited for the 2022 debut of the brand new Disney Cruise Line ship, of course, the Disney Wish. We're regularly getting pics of it coming together right now as they're building it, putting it all together out there. Can't wait to see when it all comes to fruition here within the next year plus. As of today, we haven't actually received a lot of details about the ship, more than we found out the name of the D23 Expo. We've seen a couple clips of, what the atrium might look like or whatever, but we just don't really know a lot about it, and we don't even know when we'll be able to book the itineraries. I mean, they came out just a couple of weeks ago, and obviously there was a gap in there that looks like it's going to be for the Disney Wish, but we don't know really much about it, when they'll become available, when you can start booking them. Well, the good news is that Disney has created a website where you can go on, sign up, put your email in, and they'll alert you when any news about the Disney Wish comes out. So you'll know when they're releasing anything about, what is going on with the ship. So you can get some peeks at the interior, what it'll be like, when you can start booking them, whatever. And I'm going to post a link to that site in our show notes and on our newsletter as well. So if you're looking to sign up for it, so you can be among the first to know what's going on with the Disney Wish and know when you'll be able to book those itineraries, you can just put your email, and I already put ours in there to sign up for it, and you'll get to find out more. Also, there's rumors that there's a show coming out at the end of April that's going to show some more things about the Disney Wish as well, but I haven't confirmed that yet, but we'll see. But anyway, that'll be there for you, so you can check that out and sign up for yourself and know exactly what's going on with the exciting new Disney Wish.
Great tip, honey.
So thank you very much. So that's it for this week's show. Next week, well, we're very excited about it, and we're sure you are too. To help build the excitement even more, we're going to be talking about the reopening of Disneyland. Now, hopefully, as we mentioned a little bit ago, we'll have more details for you in regard to tickets, park pass reservations by that time. I think that it's coming out. As of right now, we're less than 4 weeks away from it reopening. By the time the next episode comes out, we'll be less than 3 weeks away from it reopening. Hopefully, they will have gotten back to us or not. But even if they don't, we'll be able to kind of discuss what we're most looking forward to, maybe some tips about approaching it when you do finally get to return to Disneyland. We'll have some fun discussions about it one way or the other.
Yeah, and we just love thinking about and talking about Disneyland.
So always happy to talk about the happiest place on earth. Also, this week we are looking for you because coming up, next week we're recording 2 episodes because we're going to be on vacation the week after that. So one of those episodes coming up is going to be our 150th official episode, our 150th official Hyperion Adventures podcast episode. And to celebrate that, we're going back to our most popular episode that we've ever done, the one that's been downloaded by far the most, which is our Disney songs, our 5 favorite Disney songs that made us cry episode. We're doing a volume 2, a brand new updated version of that.
Different ones.
Yes. And so this week, we'll also be looking for your lists. What Disney songs made you cry, so we can share those on the upcoming show. This won't air for a couple more weeks, but we will be recording it next weekend. So I'm going to put it out in the newsletter. I'll put it out there on social media. We'd love your list to be added to that episode as well.
Yeah, we love your participation. It makes it so much more interesting and exciting.
Yes. So looking forward to hearing from you and hearing all the songs that made you weepy like a little girl like me for everything.
Things that touched your emotions.
Yes.
Could be happy cry.
Could be happy cry. Yes, absolutely. It doesn't matter how it made, why or what reason it made a tear come out of your eyes or ugly cry like I do. both happy and sad. It can be any of those things, but we'd love to hear your lists on that as well. So as for today, we appreciate that you joined us today. In the future, you can find us most everywhere you get podcasts. However, the very best place to find us is on our own website, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. And while you're there,
please sign up for our newsletter, and thank you if you've already done that.
Yes, please sign up for the newsletter, and thank you for those of you who have. It's just another way to be kind of in the Hyperion Adventures podcast. No, another way is to follow us on social media. Please find us on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. Check us out on YouTube by just doing a search for Hyperion Adventures Podcast. Hit subscribe. You'll know whenever we have a new video or a new sort of video release of our podcast anyway. And if you ever want to contact us with those 5 favorite Disney songs that make us cry or anything else that we have reaching out there for you to kind of do your part in, you can hit us up at our Gmail account, HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com.
Right. We love hearing from our Hyperion Adventurers, and you're all part of our family, and we really appreciate the interaction. And we also appreciate when you take the moment to share the fact that our podcast exists with a friend or family.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just telling your friends about us is the best way to get the word out that there is the show that people might like. If you have the extra time, give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or whatever service you use. A little more time, a review would be excellent as well. It helps get the word out, but it also helps us know how we're doing as a show.
Right. So thank you for those who have done that already.
Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate all of you who just listened. And if you've given us a review or told friends, we really appreciate that. And thank you for listening to the Hyperion Adventures podcast. We look forward to sharing some time with you again next week. Until that time, I'm Tom.
I'm Michelle.
And we hope that you have a magical week.
Bye.